Welcome back. I've got Jay Dixon online. Jay, how are you?
I'm doing great today, Michael. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I am awesome. Really looking forward to this conversation. So, for those that aren't familiar with your work, why don't you share a little bit about you and then we'll jump into this conversation?
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I like to say I'm the athlete's brand after sports. And so my website is successcoach.com and that's strategic in that branding. So my history is a football player from a young age and playing Division I football and really chasing that dream like a lot of folks out there do, whatever that passion sport is. And when that game ended and for us all it ends. I went through this tough time and tried to find myself, and there's a lot of data behind that. And so I, after some great people surrounding me and helping me get through those hard times after sports, I was able to have some great people around me and successfully start and grow three of my own companies, and then be a part of what I think is one of the leaders in the small business M&A, at least here in New York. And they're doing a great job there and help a lot of people buy and sell companies. And then about 2.5 3 years ago, I was able to put pen to paper and really digress and for what I like to say, make that leap from success to significance and really try to put a message out there that benefits people and my tribe of people, which are athletes, and which we can dive into a bit more. But I got a book coming out. It actually hits the shelves officially tomorrow through Simon and Schuster, available, Amazon, all that fun stuff. But I'm super excited to be here.
Congratulations on the book because I know that is a time-consuming adventure. It's not just all the thoughts come together and then you've got 30,000 words or however many words you got in your book or more. And you send it and it's perfect and doesn't need any editing and the cover looks good and it's like a 2-minute exercise, right? At least that's what they tell us. No, no, no. It's months, if not years of prep. And I always congratulate authors when they accomplish that and they can physically hold this creation that was originally in your heart and in your head. And when you actually have it there, it's an amazing sensation. So congratulations on that. And I think, and you kind of already alluded to it, is, why you wanted to, write the book was because of the experiences that you had, the things that you've seen, in talking and witnessing other athletes in that, transition from, their sporting life to their life after participating in a sporting type of thing, whether it's, football or basketball or hockey or football or soccer, as they call it in the US. There's all those things, eventually that does end. And to prepare, and you corrected me in our pre-show. I like the word that you use, and I want you to, introduce it here. But to be ready for, the next stage, that's not an easy segue for a lot of people. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so go back to the motivation of really writing a book, right? And I see yours and likewise to you as well. So now we're in the same club, Michael. So the book was sparked from pain, right? When that journey ended for me, it was a really, really tough time. And I couldn't find myself and I got into some bad things and I to be honest with you, I didn't really see much of a purpose on this earth, right? And like I said, so I had some great people surround me and help me get out of that. And so I've been thinking about it, honestly, for 15 years. So I actually went to coffee this morning with a gentleman here. I'm in New York City right now, and went to coffee with a former athlete here that runs a chiropractic practice, and we were kind of talking about, he said, "Oh, wow, you got this book coming out. How long did it take you to write?" And I looked at him. I said, "Hey, it's been getting written up here for about 15 years. I've taken some notes. I've done all that, but through life's journey, I was able to digress and go what I call through transgression of changing the way I want to approach the world, 3 years, 2.5 3 years ago, and put pen to paper and also, work for some great folks on this book as well. So, there's a lot of knowledge in this book, but it was really sparked from pain and like you said, so in the beginning of the show, so a lot of athletes, I talk with a lot of athletes, whether they're currently playing or former athletes. Some of us hold on to our athlete identity the rest of our lives. In fact, most of us do. because that athlete identity is built during those formative years for a lot of us. So, I think for people coming out of professional sports, college sports, whatever sport that may be. I mean, I speak with a lot of, colleges, stuff like that. Preparation is a word. Let's prepare for the next thing. Let's prepare for the next thing. What I like to do is I could flip that. I think preparation is a bit overused because that elicits a lot of action that I don't really want to do, right? I remember when I was playing college football, I prepare for the next day. I got a game on Saturday, guys. I prepare. Are you kidding me? So the way I like to reframe that, and I totally get it. I'm on board with that, and everyone doing that, and I applaud them. But I like to use the word realization. And the reason I like to do that, and it's all in the book, is I'm a champion of the athletic education. And I can derive it, and it's in the book. We can drive it to the neuroscience that the athletic education builds the muscles in your brain that really drive business success. So realization is that word I like to use that, hey, if you're coming out of sports, what you need to do is you need to realize. And in this book, I hope it brings that out that, hey, this athletic education, look at what you've learned, and here's how you translate that into business, and here's how successful you can be. And we back it up with a lot of neuroscience data and stories within there. So realization is something I harp on as well.
It's really important. And as I was thinking about this interview, obviously not, fully diving into the book yet, because it's not out till tomorrow, kids. But at the time that when this gets released, it'll be released already. So you can jump on it and go get it right away. And we'll make sure to have a link to it in the show notes. But I was thinking about athletes and how they condition themselves. They do all the things to make sure they're the best version of them. So when they're on the field or the pitch or the diamond, whatever, or the court or the rink, whatever sport they play, there's a lot of work that's put in to make sure that they are successful. A lot of studying, a lot of analytics, more analytics now than ever. You see all the players holding tablets and they're looking at different things, and it's progressed so much. But the beautiful thing about that is when you're an athlete and you're trained on that to read plays, to read the offense or read what the defense is giving you. These are life lessons that translate to the work world, the professional world outside of sport in so many ways. First one is, being able to look at the conditions and going, okay, what do we have here? Who's the players? What can we do? And that can be both external as far as competition or internal on your own team. Who do we have? What are their strengths? What can they do? What kind of plays can we do with these individuals that are currently on this field? Secondly, you got to call an audible. Oh, there's a change. There's conditions. Could be COVID. It could be changes in dynamics, economics, you name it. So you have to be able to read the situation and adjust, in many cases on the fly. You've got nanoseconds in many cases, not as extreme outside of sport, but there are some meetings where it's like, okay, we got to make the decision right now. And that's where you have the professionals and the amateurs get separated, because the professionals who's been through this are like, okay, this is the best decision we can make or the best play we can call based on the conditions that we are aware of right now. So just thinking about it, there's so many correlations in sport and life. But I'm guessing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, I think a lot of athletes forget that, or don't necessarily realize that those skills that they picked up, don't throw that tool bag away. You're going to use that a lot in your after sporting career. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. So, well, first and foremost, athletes need to understand the game of business, right? So there's a game in business, which is fun. When you can gamify business, you can think about that way. And we talk a lot about that. So you got to understand the game of business first and foremost. And what you hit on there, I want to dive even a bit deeper. So high metacognition. Metacognition is that ability to really see things before they happen, right? And you're right, in business, you get in those meetings or you got to make decisions. Hopefully you've seen that decision before and you've been playing that out for nights or days or years in your head. And that's something that not everyone has, right? And some people might call it imagination, but it's metacognition. We can drive it to the neuroscience and athletics through the body movement and through the coaching and through a lot of the mechanisms of athletics. Athletes at a higher rate tend to have a higher metacognition than other people. For me specifically, the way I can explain that, again, in a football sense, I was a football player. My coaches always talked about, seeing yourself making big plays, do these plays, the night before in your head, days before in your head, right? So I would watch tape against Boise State or, Nebraska or Miami, whomever we were playing. And so I'm watching tape that whole week and you're watching them play, right? And then at night, how am I going to bed? I'm thinking about myself and who's across the line. Well, there's Boise State, right? So I'm making these plays the night before, right? Whether they came to realization, I was playing the game the night before in my head. And so again, that's one of many. There are 10 soft skills based on neuroscience, so we can drive it to the brain in this book, a lot of with many other things, but that's one of them. And again, when you can apply that to the game of business and you can understand the game of business, you're making these decisions that are so much faster, right? And so much more accurate. And there's no wonder that majority of the publicly traded companies, their CEOs played sports. There's no coincidence there. And also, in what I do, even outside of the book, so I buy companies with athlete-led CEO searches, and when we place them as CEOs, there's no wonder that they return 15% higher return on assets, which is a business for our investors than non-athletes. So not only can we drive it to the neuroscience, we can also drive it to all the outcomes we're seeing in the world. So another thing I really like to democratize and hit on is, studying what makes businesses succeed is big business, but sparse has been done on the athletic education. And there's a bit out there, but I like to think, this book hopefully can catapult that athletic education and for the general public as well. They can see these great athletes when they see a resume and they're coming out. Maybe they didn't have all these internships, maybe they didn't have all this stuff, but hey, let's look at, oh my goodness, a walk-on soccer player then earned a scholarship and did this. Like there's a lot to derive from that if you're an employer out there as well. And to find fruit in that. One more story I'll give you. I'm here in New York. I'm doing an event with an Olympic figure skater who her career ended, years ago. And that she talked about that, right? She was top of her game, Olympic figure skater. And she was out there after it ended trying to find a job. And she said, look, I know I had everything. I could twirl and land on my toe, and I practiced so hard. But then I'm coming out and I'm writing my resume and I don't have all this and I'm getting passed over by people. And I said, you know what? And she's successful and she's kicking butt, right? So for the general public as well, I just hope, for those folks, we can, bring that athletic education to the forefront, even in resumes, right? And let's make that a good thing. So, yeah, good question.
It reminds me, and I've shared the story before, and it's not an athlete situation, but it ties into your resume comment where the skills that the individual had may not match up with the actual role, but there's the intrinsic value of what this individual brings to the table from a skill standpoint and personality and dealing with the public and customer service and all of that. And I hired this individual as a medical receptionist for a very busy healthcare clinic that I was running. And she had no healthcare experience. Ironically, when I was brought in, back in 2007 as a healthcare executive, I didn't have any healthcare experience either. So I thought, well, if they're dumb enough to hire me, I can be dumb enough to hire her. But I wasn't dumb. I knew what I was doing on it because I knew that she would be able to, one, learn what she needed to learn, and she'd be able to apply her customer service skills in a healthcare setting, which in many cases, customer service was maybe a 10th priority or 11th. It wasn't a top. And I knew that she would help change the dynamics of that by giving stellar customer service to the patients, because the patients, when they come in, more often than not, they're not feeling well. They're under the weather, they're sick, they might be really sick. And if you can treat them politely, kindly, help them out, anything like that, they'll feel a little bit better. And if you can make a patient feel just a little bit better, boy, does that make a big difference. So long story short, she worked for a cell phone company in one of their stores. So I knew that she'd be able to deal with customers yelling at her or patients in this case. And she did. She picked up on all the things she needed to pick up. And then a few years later, I noticed that there was a clinic that was much closer to where she lived because she had a pretty healthy commute to get to our clinic. And I saw this clinic, which was similar to ours, which was like 10 minutes from where she lived. And I called them and I said, "Hey, I've got somebody here. I don't want to lose her because she's an all-star, but she's 10 minutes from you." So that, that would solve some problems there too for people. If she had to come in last second, she'd be there in 10 minutes. So they said, "Yeah, we want to talk to her." So I approached her about it and I said, "Hey, I get this place here." And she said, "I don't want to leave here." And I said, "I don't want you to leave here either, but it's 10 minutes away. Think about it. Let me know."
Yeah.
And long story short, she did take the role. A couple years later, she was running that clinic as an administrator. So she went from cell phone clerk to running a healthcare administrator. And she
Yeah.
didn't have healthcare experience. Why? Because she had the other skills that could cause her the ability to lead. And when you find that in people and in athletes, you're going to find that a lot, just like military personnel as well. It's another industry. There's just so much talent there. So organizations that are looking for talent, broaden your pool because there's some amazing human beings that do absolute wonders for your organization, including, athletes, of course. But it reminded me of that story. And there's so many athletes out there. And I'm so thankful that you're helping them out as well to really, jump out there and convince these organizations like, this is a diamond level employee here. Let's bring them in and let them do their magic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. It sounds like that person was quite coachable in her early years as well, right? Which is something you learn. And yeah, the data is clear. The data is clear that athletics drives business success and drives great employees, right? A couple examples from me. My partner and I, when we started an air conditioning company, didn't know a darn thing about air conditioning. My resume is full of football stats. Didn't know a darn thing. Didn't know anything about books, right? But we knew how to drive a culture, drive a team, keep people motivated, and like, let's go. Like this is, culture. And learning those things, so self-taught on a lot of it, formalized it later in life, but self-taught myself a lot of that stuff. And so did my partner, and so the people around us. And even in, mergers and acquisitions, as that firm was growing, I'm thinking about those employees, the first ones that were hired. It's about those soft skills, right? Those are what get things done. And so, for me, there's the data is clear, the examples are clear, and they're out there all the time. And a personal one, for me again is, I was born. My dad was a janitor when I was born, and he wasn't an athlete, but he displayed all of these characteristics, and he finished his career as the head of facilities for the state of California, and became one of the most sought after facility people in the country, featured in Parade magazine, nationwide. So that was a very personal example of like, look, you got to show up, right? And you got to be resilient, you got to be coachable, you got to be humble, and now you need to understand the game. But the data is clear. So I really appreciate you helping getting that message out there. And what I'm trying to solve, Michael, is we've also got a problem, a big problem, and some athletes are talking about it, of when that sport ends, as these people fall apart. A lot of them fall apart, right? So we got to put them in positions to succeed again. We got to surround them with a team. We got to surround them with coaches, and it needs to happen quick. And we got to lean into those skills and stop saying, "Oh, those aren't valuable. Hey, you need to learn this." No, you don't. No, you don't. You're going to learn that. I promise we can teach you that. And any good employer out there or any good company out there can teach that stuff. What you can't teach are those soft skills, which based on the neuroscience, based on all the data we have and all the business success, are built in sports. So yeah, I really love this conversation because I am sure you can see the passion. I could be as, I get passionate about it and trying to help my tribe. So
It's so important. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's the soft skills that make businesses successful because you can teach anybody, anything. If they're coachable, they'll learn it. From you learning about air conditioning to me learning about healthcare, it was It was something that could be, but you have to be coachable, but you bring those other tools you pick up along the way and you apply them and use them in different ways. And what that does is it creates some interesting dynamics that you bring to the table that nobody else on the planet can, or at least that they're aware of. We're not the only people that can do this, of course. Anybody can do what we're doing if they are coachable and can be trained on it. But at the end of the day, there's such an amazing talent pool out there. So I highly implore employees to, broaden their view. Don't rely so much on ATS and start following, the type of personalities. And sometimes, go back and go, okay, where did I get that opportunity? What did I learn? And remember that when you're hiring people, it doesn't matter how big or how small your company is, like where was I at? What did I do? And when you find that, you'll realize, wow, there's a lot of talented people out here, and they're going to make a bigger difference than somebody that's on paper that can check all the boxes, but they don't have those skills that you really truly need. So, Jay, I really love this conversation and really greatly appreciate the work you're doing. Where can people find out more about you, the book, and everything else you're doing?
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks for having me. You and I could talk for days on this. So successcoach.com is my website. You can find the book there, find more about my program and what I do. But the book is April 2nd, which is this podcast will be released. Simon & Schuster, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere online. It's called After the Game, Bridging the Gap from Winning Athlete to Thriving Entrepreneur. And you can find it on those mediums. And yeah, I appreciate you having me.